What the fuck is up, everybody? Today, I decided to do another tier list. I was gonna rank the Fast and Furious movies, but I've decided over time that, hey, I've watched them all. There's really no way to rank these. I was gonna do best to worst, worst to best, but then I figured everyone likes tier lists, right? Let's do a tier list. That's the fairest way to do this franchise because in actuality, these movies aren't necessarily good. I can name maybe two of them that I think are actually good movies, but I decided for that reason, let's do tier list style. Maybe I will rank these one at a time as time goes on, but the Fast and Furious franchises, dude, there's 11 of them now. And I mean, there's short films too, and a TV show that I did not include in here. You know what? I'll just get right down to brass tacks and let you guys see exactly what I have in mind. All right. So here we have our tier list. Like I said, I did this a little bit differently. Some of you guys like to do S, A, B, and C. I like to get a little creative with mine, so what I did was a little bit different. So here we got all of our movies, right? Like I said, I did pretty much everything except for the spin-off animated show and then the short films. I just don't see a purpose in adding those to this. I know it's part of the franchise, but come on, dude. There's 10 whole movies and then there's an 11th film that's a spin-off. I did include that here because I guess in a way that does belong. It holds vital information to the other films, in my opinion. So right off the bat, here are our tier list rankings. The very first one, which is gold standard, essentially, means that it's a good film. Actually, a good movie. This movie is actually a good movie. That's what this is. Because like I said, a lot of these movies are not good movies, but that's not why we're here to talk about them. We're more or less here to talk about their flaws and basically why I like them and why I don't like them. What's strong, what isn't strong. Because there really is no way to tell you which one's the best, which one's the worst. There's probably one or two in here that are pretty bad, but these are all equally bad and equally good. These are movies that really are just meant for fun, and I think these are shut your brain off movies. I like them personally because these are films that preach family. They preach forgiving your enemies. I really do like that a lot. That's something that's really, really lacking in most films these days. So it's ironic that's in a film about criminals. We went from stealing DVD players to, saving the world and doing spy shit. So again, there's really no way to rank these films from best to worst. It really is just dependent on how you feel about them. So that's why there's actually a good movie tier in there. Enjoy it and love it would be the best way to describe most of these movies. It's that means that, it's 3-star. It's okay. It's not bad. Still watching, but I don't care. It's not necessarily amazing. And then pretend it doesn't exist. Some of you do this when you have franchises that you absolutely love. Freddy versus Jason, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween. Those are good examples of franchises that have films that some people tend to pretend don't exist. So, let's get started. Our very first one is Fast X. This is the most recent Fast and Furious film. When I had lost hope, this film gave me hope. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought this was a decent flick. It was a pretty good return. I mean, it's the same shit that we've been getting since After 7, if you ask me. But it's a lot better. It's deserved. It's put on a plate where the presentation is sloppy, but you end up enjoying it anyway. That's really the best way to describe this movie. It's not a strong entry at all, but it's nice. Like I said, we almost lost hope there, so it's good to see that this is one that isn't the case. I will put this one at its eyes. Like I said, I thought it was good. Didn't think it was bad. Thought it was a pretty good return to form, or sort of. There's a period where these movies kind of lost themselves, and you don't really know what it is, and you're trying to figure it out. So I think Its Eye is the best place to put Fast X. It's not amazing. It's not that bad, but it's also, it's also a pleasant surprise if you had seen the 9th film. We'll get there. All right. Next, Hobbs and Shaw. So this one is interesting for me. I originally wasn't going to see this movie. I had no intention. I did not care. But by the time we had the 8th film in this franchise, I wanted to be able to see, if there was anything worth juicing out of that. Because I do like the characters, but not enough to warrant a spinoff. That was something that I just I didn't really understand it, but whatever. I figured, fuck it, I'll wait till it comes out on streaming. I'm the person that's the problem. So that's exactly what I did. I'm not going to get too much into what a lot of these films are about. So just full disclosure. But Hobbs and Shaw, for what it's worth, for being a spin-off film, I was pleasantly surprised. I actually thought this was a good one. I enjoyed it and I loved it. No, it is not an amazing film. No, it is not good by any measure, but I enjoyed it more than Fast X. I thought for being a spin-off, this was good, and I really hope they do bring another one. Is it corny? Yeah. It's got people like to accuse this of being the superhero version of it all, but there's a different entry for that. Whew, it's hot up in here. Excuse me. All right. Next entry. The worst entry in this entire franchise. F9, original name. Now it's known as F9 The Fast Saga. This movie's just god awful, dude. I'm going to go ahead and just throw this one and pretend it doesn't exist. This is a really, really bad movie, dude. I have a very hard time rewatching it. I understand people that see it as like, why would I fucking bother at this point? I understand that entirely. That's what this movie did for me. It took me for a loop, dude. Like, I was excited about this film, sorta, and then I get there and I see the presentation and we have a story that, again, retcons pretty much the entire franchise, and it just doesn't make any sense. This movie's a mess, dude. This movie really is. They were too focused on listening to their fans. When the fans say shit like send them to space, don't listen to them, dude. And that's exactly what they did. This movie is terrible, dude. It is very hard to watch. It is not rewatchable. It is corny as shit. Again, these movies are all corny, but this one is by far the king of corn, dude. F9 is terrible. The story is god-awful, dude. And what's crazy is, before that, they had a good thing going. I would argue the 8th film is a pretty decent film, but what the fuck? This one does feel like we were trying to fill time. The 8th one felt like maybe there's something left in the tank. This felt like we don't know what to do now. And it's apparent, dude. It shows. F9 is fucking terrible. I'm sorry, but the whole John Cena being his long-lost brother is just a dumb idea. You need to put someone in there, though, to replace the character of, Brian O'Connor, played by Paul Walker, rest in peace, legend. But there's no point in putting John Cena in there and making him Vin's or Dom's long-lost brother. It's such a dumb, gimmicky thing, dude. This movie is terrible. Now that we're, pretty much in that same territory, F8, right? The Fate of the Furious. This was one that, like, I couldn't believe they were going to do it, but I saw it coming a mile away. With how they ended Furious 7, I was like, there's going to be more of these. That's very clear. But I was shocked that they really were going to go through with it. I was kind of like, damn, I kind of figured that Paul Walker dying was going to put a hole in this franchise, but apparently it didn't. And it ended up being I don't know what the numbers are on this. I know it made money, but for me, I ended up being quite surprised. I was like, this is a pretty decent flick. It's one that I would say is definitely more on par with Enjoy It and Love It. I do enjoy and love this movie. I think it's a pretty decent flick. I almost want to put it in It's Aight, but I would watch this over Fast X. And I would go on board with saying that it's a very solid entry. For not having Paul Walker, this is a very solid entry, but it was scary seeing that they put this out thinking, maybe there is more to it. And, like, realistically, I think this is really where they should have ended the franchise. I mean, they already tried it with the 7th one, but this is really where it should have ended, because I just don't see a point in juicing out any more story, right? But then Fast X comes out after F9, and so my mind's pretty much been changed, but you get what I'm saying. Fast 5. So this one's interesting for me. This is actually a good movie. I'm just going to go ahead and stick it up there right now. Hold on. All right. Fast 5 is actually a good movie. I would argue this is the best film in the entire franchise. Some people disagree. A lot of people agree, though. And it's because this is where the franchise changes entirely. We went from street racing focus to, fuck it, we're just going to do all-out heists. We're going to do bank robberies. We're going to do spy episodage, all that stuff. And yes, in hindsight, you watch it and you're like, this is wild. We went from, very weird turn there, but I enjoy that. A lot of people hated that, but I actually liked it because it gave them the chance to focus more on story. One of the things I've heard people say is that the first 3 films have no story, and I disagree. They have a lot of story, but they were able to focus on the cars more. In this newer film, I like that they focus more on the story and less on the cars. Again, I think the old films have the same amount of story as this one does, but this one is where we really actually see a little more story being fleshed out for a franchise. The first 3 feel very lost. They feel like, yeah, they connect, but they feel like they just don't connect at the same time, if that makes sense. When you watch them back to back, they don't feel like the same thing. This one is pretty much the one that solidified, okay, we're all one franchise, everything leads to this moving forward. And that's why I like it. I like that there was so much time developed into the story, or developing the story. There we go. There was enough time put in to develop the story for this franchise, for this film, I should say. Yeah, again, the first three do have story, but this one is the one that where it really counts. This is where we get to see what happens in the future. We're not left with a cliffhanger. We're not left with, I mean, I guess it's kind of a cliffhanger, if you know what I mean. But it's not like the last one, you know. It's not like Too Fast, Too Furious. It's not like the ending of the first film, which, again, I've always said is the best ending. This one is really much like there's another one coming, and it's going to feel like it belongs. It's not going to feel like another attempt to see what we can throw at the wall, because that's what I would argue the first four films are, is what can we throw and see what sticks? Even though they're good movies, I do enjoy them. They don't really have any sort of connection until Fast 5 comes along. That's what really strings it together. And I will say this, The Rock being added in here, or Dwayne Johnson, whatever, dude, awesome. He is a great addition. I love the scenes between him and Vin Diesel. They are fucking on fire, dude. You can say what you want about all the bicep flexing and muscles being thrown around and muscle cars. I don't care. It is really cool to watch these two face off and team up. The villain is not the best in this one. This is my least favorite villain of all the films. There's just not enough time to, developed on that villain, or spent, I should say. However, the action, the story is fucking awesome. I love that we get characters from past films. Again, this is a movie that solidifies everything comes together. So that's why I think that this is actually a good movie. And the acting, is decent, but more or less the story. There is something to be said here about how this movie focuses way more on story and less on cars. I like that. Now, keep in mind, that's going to be the trend moving forward. So every other film isn't going to get that same treatment because of the fact that this film, again, sets up something that just becomes a newer franchise. However, those newer films start to take a dive in quality more and more. And I could give them the same excuse, like, oh, these are a part of, this is what unites everything, but I'm not going to. You can't do that a bunch of times. Like, it's one thing to say, okay, Fast 5 was good, but I would argue that Fast and Furious 6 was not as good. Do you get what I'm saying? As an example. I know, I get a little confusing from time to time. All right. The fourth film, Fast and Furious. This is where we drop the. I am going to put this one at still watching. So this one and F9 are pretty much like the films in the franchise that I have the hardest time paying attention to. F9 is just terrible. But this one is so it's underwhelming. We were told that we're getting our old crew back. And if you're a kid like me that, hey, this, the first one came out when I was in second grade. So as a kid, the first three Fast and Furious movies really are huge and important to me. Now, this came out when I was in, I was, a sophomore in high school when this came out. So I was sort of interested in seeing it, but not necessarily. However, it was just the fact that you had Paul Walker, Vin Diesel, Jordana Brewster, and Michelle Rodriguez all coming back together. I thought that was cool and I wanted to see that, but it's very underwhelming. It does have that gritty and dark LA nightlife that they portrayed in the first film, but it's just super underwhelming. The story's not great. It's lacking. The script is very much lacking. They make a decision in here that's pretty stupid, but of course it gets retconned as anything else does in these movies. This one's just a very it's not as bad as F9. F9 is just god awful. There's nothing about F9 that's amazing. This one, it's not amazing either, but I'm able to watch it and sit through it and not feel robbed. There we go. I might get bored. I might complain a little bit. The Fast and the Furious, the OG. This one, we are going to be respectful and put it up at actually a good movie. Dude, say what you want. This is what started it all. Yes, it's also a film that revolutionized a genre. I mean, we didn't have car racing films. I mean, we did, but there wasn't like a subgenre of it until the Fast and Furious movies came around. And the funny thing is Fast and Furious came out, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit after like the Need for Speed games, which is kind of where a lot of that came from. I mean, what it really did was it highlighted the culture at the time. It kind of, there was a street racing culture. It just wasn't as big yet. It was still pretty new and pretty fresh. And this film is what really brought life to that. It's what really kind of pulled back the curtain on that lifestyle. And it revolutionized, like I said, it created a whole genre of film. And it's a movie that, even at the time, when you go back and you watch it, it's really not much about street racing. It's more about the street racing lifestyle, and it's also about criminals. Literally, dude, if you go back and watch this, it's about a cop who's undercover, who's trying to infiltrate a street racing crew, who happens to be a family at heart that are criminals. This movie is, the best way to really describe this movie, have you ever seen Point Break? That's what this is. This is Point Break with cars. It's actually gritty too. If you watch it, this one's it's a dark, gritty. Like I said, it's just like the fourth one, dark and gritty. The only difference is this one really captures the era of the early 2000s, especially the late 90s into the early 2000s, man, it captures that. I mean, the soundtrack, for what it's worth, holy shit, dude. All the new metal and all the, like, dude, there's like Limp Bizkit, Jaw Rule, all this type of stuff on the soundtrack, dude. Like I said, it really captures the time period. And the story in this one is so good. It is just as strong as Fast Five, maybe a little better. Fast Five is more of like an Avengers Assemble type movie, but it has a good story. This one is just awesome story all around. Like, again, this one, if you really watch it, especially now, you can tell that it was not meant to capitalize on a street racing franchise. It wasn't really supposed to be about street racing. Street racing was the backdrop. Some would argue, though, that the story itself is the backdrop, and hey, you know, we all have our own opinions. All right, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. Oh, my lord. This one, I already know where I'm putting it at. This one is going to enjoy it and love it. Almost put it up at actually a good movie, because I do feel like it is actually a good movie, but it has its faults. A lot of people complain about this one. This one gets a lot of hate. I will say it's got a cult following over the years. I've met a lot of, you know, soy boys and a lot of street racer boys, or whatever you want to call them, the boys. I've met a lot of boys that they like this one now. There's appreciation there. I've loved this ever since I was a kid. I mean, even when it first came out, what was it, 2006? Yeah, I was like 7th grade. I wasn't like the biggest fan of it, because I expected more of like Paul Walker to come back again, because that's what we got in Too Fast, Too Furious. We did not get that this time around. We get a whole new character, Sean, a Texan high school kid that goes to Tokyo as a disciplinary measure for his terrible teenage behavior. He goes there and learns about the street racing life. And dude, I would argue this film does a very good job at kind of displaying that. In my honest opinion, this is the one film in this entire franchise that actually does a pretty accurate portrayal of the Japanese market. And again, the street racing lifestyle. This is a film that just shows it a whole lot better. I don't want to say accurately, but it's a little more accurate than most. This one really dives into it. I would say that this one is the most pro street racing culture than any of them. Again, the first one really like puts air into it and pulls back the curtain and shows you this culture that exists in the night. But this one really shows you the world of it. And again, the story, maybe it's not powerful for some, but for me, it's pretty good. I mean, this is a good chance to just start something new, do something different. And I like that. I like that we took a step away from the Paul Walker character, or, you know, Vin Diesel and Paul Walker's characters. I mean, at the time, they didn't want to put Paul Walker in there because they felt like he was too old. Enough time had passed by. They're like, he's too old to be one of the main characters. And it's like, I mean, okay, you know, like whatever. But for us fans, it was a really good entry. And the ending is really where you're like, okay, this is going to go somewhere, obviously. And eventually it does. But yeah, I enjoy and love Tokyo Drift a lot. Again, I've kind of always loved this movie. I mean, I may not have been a fan right away. It was like that was different, you know, because it didn't have our original characters. But that was kind of the beauty of it, too. I liked that this was a fresh take. I liked that we had newer characters. I liked that this didn't really have much to do with the whole Dom and Brian story. So that was cool to see. That, and I do like the utilization of like the Yakuza and a lot of the drift aspect. That's something that we do see in the first couple films, but not nearly as much as this one, man. That is a huge deal to me. All right, what's next on the chopping block? Fast and Furious 6. So this one, again, is a very decent film that I think deserves to be at enjoy it and love it. I do enjoy and love this movie. When this one came out, man, I was pretty much riding off the fun of Fast Five. I was fully in. I saw Fast Five and I was like, you know what? I'm back. I love this franchise. This one came out. I loved it. I would argue that the Fast and Furious franchise really, really got its peak at the fifth film. And then there's a period there where 5, 6, and 7 are like the best films to most people. I would somewhat agree, not entirely, but they're definitely the money makers. Those are the films where people were just on board with this franchise. And you got to remember, this, you know, was 2 decades in the making, essentially. So you got 2 different generations of kids growing up on these movies that are coming together and kind of sharing that love. And I would argue that Fast 5 and 6 and 7 really encapsulate that. The story in Fast and Furious 6 is pretty, you know, it's very, it feels very Dark Knight-ish in a way. You'll get what I mean when you watch it. This is the one that I accuse of being the superhero entry, but for what it's worth, it is good, dude. Acting may not be the best, but man, I love the characters. I love that we have our family Avengers back. And like I said, not as good as 6 or not as good as 5, but damn, dude, pretty good entry. Too Fast, Too Furious. So I've changed my mind quite a bit about this one. I used to think this one was terrible. As a kid, I enjoyed it, you know. As time has gone on, I've grown to actually love it. And I've learned that just like Tokyo Drift, Too Fast, Too Furious is not a bad film, dude. It's got a pretty decent story. Again, they have story, but they're films that focus more on cars. And this one, I think it's a drop off for a lot of people because they expected it to go back to like the Los Angeles gritty nightlife. Like one thing that's different between the first film and this film is brighter. It has more of the Miami flair added to it, but that's why I enjoy it. I love the tonal difference between the first and the second film. And I do like the addition of Tyrese Gibson. As a kid, I wasn't a fan. I was kind of like, where the hell is Vin Diesel at? Like, that was the weirdest thing to me, that they chose to make Paul Walker the main character. I mean, you could argue that he was in the first film as well, but I feel like Vin Diesel played a big role in that too, and that was kind of a bummer that we didn't get that. However, as time has gone on, I've rewatched this, you know, I've reevaluated it. The story is pretty damn good. It may not be very in-depth. I mean, it's not. This movie has a shorter runtime than you would think, but for what it's worth, Cole Hauser is always amazing. No, that actor, dude, that guy, he's a good villain in this. That's one that I'm kind of shocked that we haven't really seen him come back yet, because he clearly gets arrested, and they clearly indicate that he might come back at some point, and he never does, as far as we know. So we'll see. But as far as all that goes, man, the street racing is awesome in this one. A lot of the jokes are pretty cool. I love the chemistry between Paul Walker and Tyrese Gibson, man. It's there. It exists. I would argue it is stronger than his and Vin Diesel's in the first film. However, when time goes on, you see that like these guys were all just meant to be on screen together, especially when Fast 5 comes rolling around. Furious 7, we are on our last one. I didn't realize that I plowed right through these. I guess there isn't a lot of them. We're going to be putting this one at enjoy it and love it. Again, very good flick. It's not the best one in the world, obviously, but damn, it's good, dude. This is where I would argue that the franchise kind of lost that peak. Fate of the Furious was good. It showed you that there was something in the tank, but maybe that's where we should have left it. This is where, in my opinion, it really just does kind of drop off in quality. You know, like, it's a good film. As I've rewatched it, upon like, you know, for at least reevaluation, it is not as good as Fast 5, and I don't think it's as good as Fast and Furious 6, if I'm being honest with you. It's a good flick. I think that one of the main reasons I drove to see it was because A, it's the last film with Paul Walker. He died, and it was like, what in the world? Like, just couldn't believe it, man. It felt like, for a lot of people like me, especially, you know, folks like me that grew up watching these films, that was just it was a gut punch, dude. It's like someone took your heart out of your chest, man. That really did hurt. And I'm man enough to admit that I fucking cried. I cried watching this movie, dude. Like, the ending is fucking hard to watch. Be someone that grew up like I did, dude, from childhood watching these. It comes for full circle, and that is like hard to accept. God, it's a depressing thought, dude. But that, and then Jason Statham is the villain, dude. So I actually really like Jason Statham. A lot of people love to hate on him because he's an action star. Whatever. No, he's not the best actor, but dude, I love him as an action star. I like action stars just because I like movies like these where you can turn your brain off and just enjoy it. Like, it's not a lecture, it's not preachy. I love movies like that. So that's why I like Statham, and I just couldn't wait to see him as a bad guy. I've only ever seen Statham play a bad guy once, and that was a pretty decent flick. It was with him and Chris Evans. I can't remember the name of it, but he is a fucking bad guy in that. So could not wait to rush to the theaters and see him do it in here. And I would argue he did great. He was a great addition. I mean, they utilized him very well, obviously. He got to be a part of the franchise moving forward, and his character is a prime example of what I said about forgiveness. This series really is preachy on forgiveness and family, and that is why I like it. That's something that I feel like a lot of movies lack. You could argue these films, you know, are very like pro criminal activity and street racing, which is highly illegal. But at the end of the day, isn't it ironic that the films that are about criminals riding cars, it's the only type of films that have any sort of like reference to family? Because you won't find that a lot in a lot of movies today. I dare you to go out and try it. You will not find a lot of movies that preach that your family is important, and not just your family, but your friends. That's what I like. I mean, at the ending of what is it, Fate of Furious, excuse me, Statham ends up arriving to pretty much fulfill his end of the deal that he makes with Vin Diesel's character, Dom. And essentially, Dom welcomes him to the dinner table with a beer. They even poke fun at it in Fast X. Like, they open up, it's almost like they break the fourth wall. Like, there's something about these guys with their cars and their Coronas called family, and we got to infiltrate it. Like, it has become kind of a breaking the fourth wall now. It is kind of like memeing itself, it feels like, but hope we can get out of that hole. However, that is why I love these films. I love that they're very pro-family. I love that they're very pro-forgiveness. And I do love that they preach fast cars, man. I like cars. Every guy does. I'm not a big car nut, though. Like, I couldn't tell you every single car name, but I love fast vehicles. And this is one of those franchises that's really where their money comes from, is the action sequences, the vehicles, man. But for what it's worth, some of these have good stories. Now, let's talk brass tacks here. I am not done with my tier list. We got to figure out how we're going to put these in order. So, a lot of you are going to be upset with me, but I am fine with this. Actually, a good movie. I do believe that Fast 5 is the best film in this franchise. I do think it's better than the first one. Love the first one. Nothing against it, but the fifth one, dude, has the best story, has the best everything. Now, enjoy it and love it. How would I do this? This is actually pretty easy for me. We're going to do this. So Tokyo Drift would be first. So we got Tokyo Drift, Too Fast, Too Furious. Definitely 6 for me. Then 7. Hobbs and Shaw, and then 8. Yeah, that sounds about right. This would be the way I would do it in the order. For enjoy it and love it. It's I and all that. It looks like I can't change anything because these are all, yeah. I do, like I said, I enjoy most of these movies. I don't think I'm ever gonna watch F9 again, dude. It's that bad. But even the fourth one, Fast and Furious, even that one's actually pretty interesting for me. Like, I'll still rewatch it. It's just not as entertaining. It's just missing that heart that the first film had. That was the biggest problem, dude. And it didn't feel whole as a film. And I talked to a lot of people that kind of feel the same way. They kind of feel like this film is just like the most empty one. It feels very lost and alone as a movie. But all right, guys, there you have it. That is my official list, ranking tier list of the Fast and Furious franchise. Hell yes. I'm glad that we made it through this. Thanks, guys, for watching. As always, please hit that subscribe button. Comment below. Let me know what you thought. I am Tony, and I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one. Until then, when you're here, you're family.